So the optimism for me is something that I would cling to as kind of a necessary ingredient of being who I am and doing what I do in the world. And on November 6th, when I woke up, it was gone.
I remember turning to my husband as the results were coming in, and it was dismal, and we saw the writing on the wall. And I turned to him and I said, we can't stay here for this again. I can't stay here for this again.
I just feel like I have on platinum handcuffs. I am actually trapped.
I felt like the systems failed us. I felt like the structure failed us.
It is a rebellion to let people know that Black women are no longer dying for this.
This is something that pierced me in a way that changed me forever. And I just want to find out, who am I going to be on the other side of this?
We're holding on so tight that we forget who we are. We forget like the point of it all, which is to live. The best thing I could have ever done for myself was let go.
Well, welcome so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us at our podcast, The Black Wall Street Times. I'm Alexandria, your podcast host and reporter, and we explore ideas, people, and movements in the future of U.S. politics and the diaspora and in Black America. So today I'm honored to be joined by Dr. Jade Singleton. She is the creator of the documentary The 92%. Dr. Singleton is a researcher, storyteller, former banker, thought leader, and her work examines the political, economic, and professional experience of Black women in America and across the globe. So through the 92%, she explores realities facing Black women in a pivotal moment in American history, particularly surrounding the 2024 presidential election. And Dr. Singleton is leading an ambitious research initiative examining Black women's experiences in the global workforce and helping to build a platform for research, advocacy, and action. So today we'll discuss about the inspiration behind the film, The 92%. We have our own documentary, y'all. So I'm really excited about this opportunity to talk to you, Dr. Jade Singleton. So how are you today? And welcome to the show.
I'm so excited to be here with the Black Wall Street Times. This is just phenomenal. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, tell me, just watching that film, it always gives me chills just listening to the documentary and hearing the voices of the women, and some of those things that women were saying really resonated with me. So I just kind of want to know if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, your career, and just what inspired you to produce this wonderful documentary, The 92%.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So as you mentioned, my background has been in banking for many years, but it was interesting because throughout my banking career, I'd always kind of get picked up and put in focused roles, right, that were really focused on culture. And how to fix culture within organizations. And so I then moved into consulting. But one of the things that was really interesting to me was that I was noticing, when you're doing that work, you run into these trends, right? When you're kind of the person that's behind the curtain to see all the kind of ugliness and are asked to kind of help and fix it. And so what that allowed me to do was really be able to take a deeper look at what was actually happening with Black women in the workplace. And then, of course, looking at, the what's happened and what's been taking place with this current administration, I was noticing that we were using different language than we have in the past. There was a lot of focus on almost like an inner uprising, as our executive producer, Tara J. Frank, likes to call it. It's like an inner awakening, in a sense of like, wow, this really might not be the place, either physically, emotionally, spiritually, what have you. And I need to start thinking about life differently, right? And our relationship with labor in this country differently. And so having those conversations and those experiences really propelled me to think about, how can this be documented? Because it's different. And it was a trend, just like I had noticed in my, work prior. It was a trend that I didn't think was getting enough elevation, and it deserved it.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of things there. So this new language, can you talk about what you thought what the language was before the 2024 election among Black women and their relationship to work and labor in the United States as a whole versus what it is now, like what the language you kind of saw that was changing? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I think the language that I was hearing before and used before and lived before was really around the grind, right? Very American, entrepreneurial, highly, heavily capitalism focused. If you, work hard and kind of become a boss and you get your degrees and you do all the things that you're supposed to do, eventually something will happen. You have to work twice as hard, to get half as far. But eventually, if you grind enough and you give enough and you do enough, you'll be elevated into these positions and seats of proximate power, right? That was the language, but more beautiful than that, more eloquent than that, glossier than that. It was kind of like the Black excellence motif, right? Which was very focused on, attaining a certain level of, I would say, almost status and comfort. And I didn't think there was anything inherently wrong with that. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with a lot of ways in which we use, language to describe our experiences and what we're striving for. I just think it was at a certain time, there was a belief system around that, that you can kind of educate yourself out of this kind of system. And then post-election, what I was really hearing was more about sparing yourself, saving yourself, working in community, right? Basically, you can't pour from an empty cup. You need to start reevaluating what it is that we actually want. For a lot of women, and some of the women in this documentary, they got to the point of the height, of where they thought they would, remain and stay. And it was disillusioning. And this was part of that, I think, facade around the American nucleus that we've produced here and been a part of here that began to crack. And so where were we to go other than going internally and to community?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we have to go internally into the community. I think this has just been really, like, people are looking at like building bridges more and doing more collective economics and working together. And I think, like, when I think about Vice President Kamala Harris lost, like, she was really at the top of her game. She had the degree, she was vice president, the senator, she had all the things. But so her election loss, when I look at some of the commentary from the ladies that are in the film, like, what did that loss kind of symbolize for Black women, if you will, when it comes to?
I think across the board, and I want to say across the board for the women in the documentary, because we all vary in political views. I was not, a super enthusiastic Kamala person. So I'm not going to say I was. I didn't like the policies. I didn't like a lot of things. But what it universally among all of us, regardless of how we felt politically, was that the tear down of her was very jarring. I'm not to say that she is stupid and low IQ and those types of things. That that stings because you can obviously see if we're looking resume to resume, right? So it was almost a reminder of some of just the vitriolic ways that Black women can be treated, not even being based on anything related to the things that I'm talking about, like policy and some of these other elements. We have to take it as low as, her basic humanity, and stripping her basic humanity. And so regardless of where you were on that spectrum, political spectrum, that's hard to watch because it's almost like annihilation by proxy.
Yeah. And then you also titled the film The Silent Revolt. So what do you see the revolt is that Black women are doing in terms of our resistance movement? Like, how do you see that revolt? We call it silent. So
yeah, I think it's silent in that it's not when we think about Black resistance in this country, usually what gets highlighted is some of the more, you hear it. You're going to hear it. You're going to ultimately see it. There's a boldness to it. There's a courageousness to it. I think all of that's still there. But I think with this particular movement, it is silent, meaning there's not, these big displays of it. There's no, it's interior, right? So it's Black women figuring out, okay, if I lose everything here, where else in the world might I be able to partner? It's kind of turning back to communities that had been long abandoned, like our farming communities, et cetera, and making those connections again. It's like doing so, but with a very concerted, almost stealth effort that I really admired. And even me, I've learned so much about what is taking place with quiet players in the Black community that I had no idea. I had no idea that certain infrastructure existed. I had no idea that certain relationships had been built over time. And it really was a call for us to do that, but in a way that was not Black excellence. In a sense, there's no going to be any glossy, cover article likely about some of this, but it's still powerful in and of itself.
yeah, definitely powerful, especially like the resting and looking internally and building community. And I'm seeing that professionally as well. So I guess my other question is like the documentary really kind of goes deep, and it's not just about the election. I'm not going to tell everyone the video, but it goes deeper into just Black women's role in American democracy and work and labor. So what do you think Black women continue to be the most politically engaged groups in this country, and how did you decide to take it from that angle, not just the election? I know you started off that, but how did you decide to kind of branch out to make it bigger than just about the election?
I think I decided to make it bigger than the election because it really wasn't just about the election. It was so much about our labor and evolution. I'm working and should be finished with a book in August that really talks about this as a Stoic era. It's like a resignation that things won't change unless we're changing internally. This kind of buck against this very large machine that has been kind of well-oiled and crushing the world over. Thinking that there's a cog in the wheel that you can kind of hold back and to stop it from crushing you, for many of us, has been kind of released. There's a way in which to do this that we're talking about and considering that we had it before. And I think a unity that's really burgeoning out of that. And so I wanted to capture that. I wanted to look at past movements, what our role has historically been in this country and how it's translated into our reality today. We talk about the Mammy mythology. We talk about, this kind of mule-like work, the way in which you're supposed to be grateful to even have, be able to breathe in certain rooms and spaces, even if you created them on your own back. And so those are some of the elements that I wanted to cover to say this is now an evolution of thought, an evolution around labor, and an evolution of the social role of Black women within this country.
Wow. Yeah, I mean that's I mean especially the mammy images, and a lot of us are probably like maybe two generations from sharecropping, and
Yeah.
definitely three or four generations from slavery, and you just think that the mammy image definitely revokes a lot of emotion for me. So I kind of want to know about one of the statements that the lady stated in the trailer was that Black women, we're no longer dying for this. So, and
Yeah.
that we're holding so tight that we forgetting the point of it all is to live. So, how do you feel the film, like the message that if we're not dying for this, then what are we doing? Like, or how do you see the film in terms of challenging viewers to rethink about what their place in the world is, and how their relationship to the United States and just the
Mhm.
homeland, if you will. Just kind of want to get your perspective.
I think that that was Crystal Johnson that was
Mhm,
talking, and she has an actual podcast that she
mhm,
did, a series called "We're Not Dying for This," where she's talking exactly about what you're mentioning.
mhm,
Um, and that was one of the kind of rallying calls that I continued to hear. It's like when you look at the rate of burnout, which is like at 88%,
mhm,
Black women dealing with burnout, when you look at the stress related disease, which is off the charts in every facet that you can imagine, we're always at the bottom um, of any of these indexes for the most part. There is an element of thinking about that now that we have that data pure and plain and simple right in front of us, where if I'm stressed and I'm dysregulated and my nervous system is haywire all the time, I now understand that that is killing me.
mm,
It's
mhm,
no longer just like, oh, I'm just stressed out. No, this is killing me. It's destroying me. It's destroying my
mhm,
cells. It's raising my blood pressure. It's costing me my life, right? That's a different way of thinking about things. That's different than saying, endure until the end. Endure until the end of what? And endure until the end for who? If it's not, your
mm,
family and your community, why keep enduring to have dirt continuously kicked into your face? And I think that that's what really sets this apart. The thoughtfulness of it really moves me. The thoughtfulness of it and the almost the spiritual nature of it is just so compelling.
yeah, I when I watched the full film, I mean, I was really drawn, especially by the spiritual nature and just how Black women have just carry so much burden in our lives and just on our backs, and it's becoming a physical strain for us, that you were saying, like the diabetes and being overweight, and all the things that go along with adding stress. So how did one of the ladies that was in the film, she kind of talked, I don't want to tell too much, but how do I say this without saying talking about it? But she really dives deep into like the ancestral nature
Yes.
of Black women and how we've had to deal with collective trauma. So, can you talk about the collective trauma that Black women have dealt with in this past year, and how it's kind of becoming part of our the way our it's being able for us to like connect to our ancestors in a way, in terms of how we're dealing with it. Like our ancestors are dealing with trauma, now we're dealing with trauma. So I just kind of
Yeah.
want to get your perspective on how Black women are dealing with this moment.
I would say, and I think yeah, it definitely was Kimberly that was
Yeah.
from Inner Key that was talking about that, and that is like her area of expertise. But I think that when you're talking about, and I don't want to do her a disservice, but she always talks about collective compounding stress. So we look at like epigenetics and things that are passed down in our genes, right?
Mhm.
To keep us safe,
Mhm.
to keep us alive, those kinds of stories of trauma. And there's been all of these studies, not even just, Black folks, but also just even if we look at like studies that were done on on people whose parents survived World War II, and they're able to see the genes, and the
Wow.
changes and then the behavioral changes that come out of that. If you think about us, it hasn't been a let up. So there has not been a let up. There hasn't been, a 4-year period in this nation's history of not harming Black people in major, horrific, and horrible ways. And so because there has been no let up, there is no war end, right? There is no kind of great awakening where we've rebuilt, the proverbial Germany or anything like this, where you're able to take a breath and breathe. That compounded stress is so cumulative for so many generations and for so long, that in order to break away from it, it does require some of that more deep kind of introspective and spiritual work, regardless of what your background in religion or what have you is. The inner working requires so much from us.
Wow. I never thought about it like that. That was another point. I think you said Crystal Jackson made that, not only
Crystal Johnson.
Oh,
Yeah.
Crystal Johnson said we're not dying for this. So I think about like that trauma that you just mentioned, how important it is that we recognize it. And how are you seeing Black women move? If they're not dying for this, what are Black women doing? I know you kind of pushed that into the film as well, like the way how we can resist. This constant warfare that we're being forced to fight.
There's so many beautiful things that Black women are doing that I just can't even name them all. But I think finding what it is that we actually like to do. So much of what we've been taught has been around survival, being able to survive and protect. And I think now, and it's probably not the first time in history that this has happened, but there's this kind of focus on, is this really what it is that I want, right? Maybe I don't want to do this. Maybe I actually want to do an apothecary. One of the women in the film, she's like a phenomenal top line fundraiser that's worked for these big, huge, massive corporations, and decided, you know what I want to do? I want to learn about making healing teas with herbs. And, she traveled around and met with women in indigenous populations and brought that knowledge back. That's what she loves to do, right? And so finding that out and then saying, okay, well, what do I need to be able to do this, right? Where do I find the resources, which are often found in community? They're like tucked down, but they're there. To be able to do this. And do I need all of this? Do I even need, for me, I always wanted to, be in banking, which I did and I really liked, but I wanted to have like a McMansion. Okay. That was like my big thing. My house looks just like, Tom's on the right and Jennifer's on the left, right? They look the exact same. And, that would let me know that I've arrived, right? And now when I look at them, they're so ghastly, right? I mean, it looked like McDonald's or something, so corporatized to me. And I realized I don't even want that. I probably didn't even want it at the time, but because it was sold and packaged in such a way, it said, this is what you need to, this is what you need to do. So I think a lot of it is really finding out what we actually like. You want to get the house on the water. I had to realize, like, I don't even like I'm not a beach person. I'm not a water gal. I like the mountains, right? So these are all like considerations of who am I actually outside of this manufactured social role that's made up, that I'm having to live in someone else's imagination that doesn't have my best interest at heart.
Wow, that's powerful. I mean, the book was so spiritual. I mean, not the book, but the documentary was. And just speaking of that, like over 600,000 Black women have lost their jobs under the Trump administration. You kind of want to go back into policy discussions right now. So how do you feel the film will inspire policymakers and politicians to address economic and political impact of the loss of Black women labor at this moment?
What I think is that I hope that they understand that they're not speaking to the same group that they were talking to before. Black women are not going to be the same cohort demographic that they spoke to 4 years ago. They're not going to be able to do, catfish dinners and a couple of rap artists and, these kinds of games with us. Not when we've lost as much as we've lost and the suffering has been as deep as what I've seen with Black women in my community. The tears, the fear, the illness, and also I think that what I hope that politicians hear and understand is that there needs to be something done for the Black woman's vote. Our loyalty has been taken for granted. While the rug has been pulled from under so many Black women, I live relatively close to the DC area and grew up in the kind of DC area in Fairfax, Virginia. And so my network is largely pooled there. 1 out of every 2 women that I know personally is out of a job. So to me, coming to us and wanting us to kind of shake a tail feather and have a good time and sprinkle a little bit of Black girl magic will be viewed as an extreme insult. And so I hope that they don't insult us like that again. And I hope that they'll come to the table ready to do some actual business and ready to do some repair. So after this has been done to our community, I think that there needs to be a demand. It's not enough to just say, oh, well, you've lost everything during this period of secondary Reconstruction. Good luck to you. There needs to be some reparative justice here that looks like there's some value and some worth and some dignity that these politicians are affording Black women if they want to continue to maintain our support.
Yeah, no, speaking of that, I mean, your documentary it's not just a documentary, it's actually kind of a visual report of the state of Black women. That's how I looked at it as well. So I didn't know if you could talk a little bit about the declaration that you've kind of put together in the advocacy side of this project that you want to amplify.
Yeah, absolutely. So we put together, and I say we, meaning a lot of Black women. I wrote a declaration and asked for folks to weigh in, asked for women to weigh in, women from public policy, women from education, whoever felt drawn to it, and came up with the Washington Declaration on Black Women's Labor. And what I wanted that to do was to become a thinking and talking piece to ask these politicians and others, that are in running these corporate arenas where they stand on these, and these are basic dignity demands, where they stand on repair, where they stand on restorative justice and also how Black women should be treated in the labor markets. What is it that they're willing to say, this is something that we can agree to? It'll likely evolve over time, but I think having something in writing that folks are able to react to is going to be powerful, and I hope it gets taken seriously. That's our biggest thing right now. I want it to be taken seriously because this is so serious, and so many Black women are in so much pain, and I want to make sure that it stops.
Yeah, no, this is definitely serious. I mean, like you stated earlier, so many people have lost their jobs. I mean, so many people have lost business contracts. And, Carla Hayden, she was the first Black woman she was the first Black woman, first woman ever to serve in Library of Congress. She was fired. And Letitia James has been under fire, attorney Letitia James. So this is deeper than just one election. This is like some policies that have tried to that have been very targeted in terms of how they've tried to really push down the Black woman, if you will. So I know Representative Ayanna Pressley from Massachusetts has been more vocal than other congresspersons that I've seen in terms of like really focusing on Black women's labor. Yeah. And I mean, how do you see this film kind of amplifying that at the policy level? I know you talked a little bit about the declaration, but what other type of strategic partnerships are you looking at doing, and just how you're trying to really get this to be, like you said, taken seriously?
I think that, we've been reaching out And I'm not a big name, right?
Yeah.
I spent most of my life in other arenas. And so what we always ask is, if you know someone, connect us. We're in that space now where, all of these things take a lot of resources. So we're, in the 501c3 category and able to, do what we need to do. And we take a little and we make it go pretty far. So getting to certain tables, we're actually going to be at the Commonwealth Club of World Affairs showing the film.
Okay.
And the Commonwealth Club of World Affairs is the oldest public forum in America. And so, we're getting into these rooms. We want to be able to stay there, and again, stay there with dignity and respect. And so, we just open up the floodgates. I think one of the big things that we do is never gatekeep. We never gatekeep. We never say, oh, well, this person, what can I get for that? Genuine conversations, I think, really brings together who's in alignment and who can best advocate. And so we're patient. We're patient. We put it out there. We move through our circles the best way we can. And we believe that if we continue walking in alignment and telling the truth, that we'll be aligned with the right partners.
Yeah, no, it's important. I mean, this issue is just hitting so many sectors, the education sector, the policy, Black women pursuing medicine, like our academics are being
Yes.
attacked, our banks, our businesses.
Yes.
And one part of the film that I thought was interesting, and I'm not going to tell the film, but there is this silent Blaxit, they call it, movement.
Yeah.
And that word comes from Brexit, when Great Britain decided to leave the European Union. And I've seen a lot on social media where a lot of Black people are looking to move out. They're trying to figure out how they can relocate to Rwanda, move to Kenya, move to Costa Rica.
Yeah, my girlfriend Kia, that's in the film, is actually in Kenya right now. Like,
oh wow,
literally, she's over there feeding giraffes and like sending me pictures, and I'm so jealous. But
right. So, I always believe someone who's traveled and lived abroad that you really take yourself with you wherever you go.
Yes.
But how do you see Brexit? How do you see that in Black women finding peace? Like, how do you see? Could you kind of talk about that in the film? Like, do you feel that's the answer, or are there multiple answers to finding peace? Can we find peace right on this American soil? Or I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that.
So I love Blaxit. I think it's beautiful. And I think that, and in our film, we talk about women who have left, and we, film there. And, and I think it's very powerful. I think it's going to be different for every person. For me, I don't see myself being able to leave here. I just don't think I can do it. I just can't imagine not living here, because I don't know what it is. I just feel like I just can't do it. I just don't know. My husband and I, we talk about it all the time. I know people who have moved to like South Africa, and they live in like the best home. Like their lives are so enviable. And I'm just like, I don't know if I could leave this place. I feel so tethered to it and tethered to the land here. And I think for some of us, it might feel that way, and that's okay. I think we each have to decide for ourselves where we need to go to be the most free, to experience true freedom. And it might not be in the typical locations. My sister, for some reason, has always wanted to be in the Scottish Highlands. Who knew, Okay. She loves it. She likes the fresh air. There's a good diaspora community there. And, for her, that may be the place. So I would say, again, going internally and figuring out where it is that you feel most at peace, that's the key.
Yeah, that is the key. I mean, sometimes just being at peace is drinking a bottle of lemonade, a cup of lemonade, and sitting on my porch. I
Yes.
mean, that's what my grandmother used to do. She would
Yeah.
just have her Lipton tea and sit on the front porch.
I love
So,
it.
I guess Black women have even, and she lived in Jim Crow, in Clarksdale, Mississippi, in the
My
heart of
grandmother's from
the,
Mississippi too. I think
yeah,
everybody's grandma's from Mississippi.
I
My
know.
grandmother's from Greenville, Mississippi.
Oh, okay. That's not too far.
Not
That's not
far at
too
all.
far. So, but I do kind of beyond the Brexit, um, do you see like how you see Black women kind of heal politically and economically from this loss? Like, how are you hoping this film kind of sheds light on that?
That's a harder one. That's hard. I know because I'm there, right? So when
Mhm.
this happened, I lost my contracts that
Mhm.
I had spent years, developing. People would not even speak to me, that I had worked with for years because it was so toxic. Some of the things that I was working on, like, goodness forbid you talk about inclusion or something, right? So there's a
Mhm.
lot of heartache that came out of that. And I tell women all the time, because I don't like to sound Pollyanna about it. If I didn't have my husband, I don't know where I would be,
Mhm.
seriously,
Mhm.
because I lost so much. Um, and I think understanding what a blow that is, to our, not just our egos, but to our very survival, and understanding the alerts that puts on your nervous system, the demands, and the fact that we have to almost um, try to figure out what it is that really matters. It requires you to have to, like, strip down to the bare basics after you've climbed, like, the highest mountain you could possibly climb as a Black woman. To take
Wow.
that tumble down, you might realize, kind of looking around, wait, there's some flowers down here, actually. Like, there's a little bit of joy down here. Like, this mountain was kind of cold anyway. It wasn't
Mhm.
really all that. I was up there relatively alone. Uh,
Mhm.
you know what? I don't know. Maybe the meadow is a little bit softer for me anyway. My mother has a girlfriend rather, that she would say all the time. It's so funny. My mother is a Pulitzer Prize winning researcher. So all of her friends were, like, huge in journalism. Every Black journalist you can think of would be, like, at the
Wow.
book club and stuff like this. So I won't give away the woman's name, but you would know it if I said it. And she said, listen, she would say all the time, like, I don't care about this house. She had this huge house with huge ceiling, everything. Every time she would talk about it, crack up. She'd be like, I can go back to the projects today and
Hmm.
be fine. I miss the community. She was like, I miss the this and the that. And she would list them off. And it was funny at the time, but she really was serious. Like, what I've left, what I've given up, was
Mhm.
community, was, being able to go outside and
Yeah.
talk to neighbors and be able to catch up. I've lost that. I've been so far removed. And she would
Mhm.
say, like, yeah, it wouldn't be a problem for me, you know? And I'm not saying that to be like, everybody needs to go back and live at the bare minimum. What I'm drawing the distinction between is really understanding what it meant to be in community, those times where you felt very alive. So for her, it was in her community, right, where she grew up and where she learned to live and love. For others, it might be another space and time, completely different space and time. But where
Mhm.
are those places that you were at before you were on that kind of cold mountain? Thinking about it that way has really been useful for my psyche when we're thinking about kind of the economics around some of this.
I think so too. I mean, that kind of goes back to this kind of like chasing this version of capitalism of trying to move up and all the Black girl magic that you have to go through in order to just get to where you are. And then like Miss Johnson stated in the film that we're not dying for this. So
Yeah.
I think kind of goes back to, I guess, the way African cultures were formed earlier, before colonialism and before we the slavery. So I kind of want to talk and have a few other questions, but just want to talk about this global project that you want to do too, because like it's not just about what Black women are feeling here in the United States, but how are Black women in labor, how that's being impacted by policy, by
Mhm.
economics globally. I know earlier we had talked about how a lot of our teas are being picked by Black women in Kenya who are bending
Yes,
over backwards, and all of the health they have to deal with. And you have
horrible.
corporations, I'm not going to name them, but
Yeah.
corporations that really profit big and they don't really pay their farmers. I just kind of want to talk about this survey and the overall policy project that you want to push forward.
Yeah. One thing that kept happening with 92 was like we would show the film, and then a sister from Sierra Leone would come over, who happened to see it and be like, we need to do this there as well. And I thought, I just didn't think there would be any congruence, right? And over that kept happening. A beautiful sister from Senegal was like, Jade, I really want to get this translated into French. And I was like, really? But what I learned was it wasn't about it's about the system as a whole. So when we're talking about this, and when I started to look at some of the trending analysis, I said, oh my goodness, this is a global sentiment that's happening right now. It's not just one kind of pocket, my own little American mind, that's thinking about like seeing it through that prism. Black women's labor is exploited all over the world. I mean, it is the
Wow.
kind of backbone all over the world.
Hmm.
And it is something that I think is very powerful that I've seen come out of this whole nightmare that we've been in, is how the diaspora has stepped up and how the continent has stepped up. I will tell you, I have never seen that before to this degree. When we're talking about, Black women who have been pretty much sued into oblivion, and Ghana saying, hey, we'll do it here. We want to do, your grant program,
You're
right?
talking about the Fearless Fund.
Yes, I wasn't sure to name it, but I love that.
Yeah.
And it keeps happening. Our artifacts that they've tried to take out of the museum, the diaspora saying, well, hey, and the continent saying, we have museums. It's not like we don't have museums. Send it here. We'll hold it. The testimonies at the UN about what's happening in Ghana, again, stepping up and talking there. When we're doing that at that level, when we're talking with a unified voice at that level, people have to stop and listen, because the labor force is literally on our backs. So it's one thing if I go in and I say, American Black women are going through this. It's another thing if I'm going in and saying, American Black women are going through this, Ghanaian women are going through this, Nigerian women are going through this, all based on the same exact system. And here's what we're asking for. That's a completely different conversation. It's a completely different conversation as far as unionizing. It's a completely different conversation as far as earning power. If you think about that, right? Like what you were talking about with the teas. If I know that the tea that's being produced that I'm drinking every day is caused by a woman who is literally picking for her life in Kenya, and 90% of those women that are tea workers in Kenya are raped on a regular basis, and no one does anything about it. And she endures all of that so she can eat and feed her kids and send her child to school. I'm not buying that tea. I better not see that tea. What if I'm able to put that out there, right? And say this isn't a safe place for Black women to work or buy.
Wow.
And we see that across the UK. We see it across, our sisters that are in Australia that are constantly getting attacked and imprisoned. We see that, across Nigeria. And we all say, you know what? We ain't buying it. Pay them what they're worth, and maybe we can talk about it. If we have that kind of a network, and this might not be it to establish it, but it can be the beginning of a conversation. And so that's what I wanted to document. Across the board, what are we experiencing at a macro level? And then we can get into how do we ultimately make a demand, make a declaration to change and to shift things. And it'll take time, but
It'll take time.
it's powerful. If we can do it, it'll be powerful.
No, it's definitely powerful. I mean, the film really struck me. I left in tears. I just really felt seen because I lost my job at USAID. People know my story, and but we're pivoting, we're changing. I think that's really important right now because more Black women are telling their stories. It started with even Vice President Kamala Harris with her book 107 Days. And then we have Tiffany Cross book, Love Me. And now your film, 92%. So more of us need to be storytellers and telling our story and fighting for change. And so I guess one of my last questions is given what you've been able to accomplish with this film and just the movement of the 92% and all of that involves, how do you feel, how do you see this transforming this powerful story into a movement that creates those measurable changes? I know you talked about the policy level, but there's so many layers. There's the policy level, there's the physical level, there's the emotional level. I don't know if you can,
I think the best thing I've ever done is say, I don't know pretty much anything, right? All I know is where to find the best brains, like yourself. And other women, the women that you saw featured in that film. If I don't really have a ton of skills. I think the only skill I really have is convening. Is bringing women together that have the type of horsepower and mind power to come up with solutions. So I won't have the solution for what to do, but what I can do is put stuff out, right, where folks can react to that and move in a direction that we believe would be collectively empowering. And figuring out too what folks agree on. We're not going to agree on everything, of course, so that's been part of the issue, I think, is just dealing with certain things like tribalism, et cetera, even here, classism. We're not going to agree on everything, but I bet you we can agree on a couple of things. Like, I want you to be free. That's for absolute sure. I want the Black woman next to me to be free, or across the world to be free. I want her children to be safe. That's kind of something that we can all agree on, right? And I want her to be able to pursue what God, or however her inner being wants to pursue, to be able to exist in this world to her fullest potential. If we can agree on those three things, and that's where I'm thinking about, as far as pillars are concerned, how it gets done is going to come from women that have far better tactician skills than I could ever imagine.
Right.
And so I see that really as my role.
Wow. Well, we'll end on that note. You guys, she is having these film screenings all across the country. So please visit her website. I think we can put the website at the end of this this podcast show. But yes, I'm really excited to have talked to you, Dr. Singleton, and I've just really enjoyed this conversation. It's been spiritual, it's been informative, and definitely provocative in terms of the topic we're talking about. So thanks everyone for joining us at the Black Wall Street.
Thank you. So good to see you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
All right.
So the optimism for me, it's something that I would cling to as kind of a necessary ingredient of being who I am and doing what I do in the world. And on November 6th, when I woke up, it was gone.
I remember turning to my husband as the results were coming in. and it was dismal, and we saw the writing on the wall. And I turned to him and I said, we can't stay here for this again. I can't stay here for this again.
I just feel like I have on platinum handcuffs. I am actually trapped.
I felt like the systems failed us. I felt like the structure failed us.
It is a rebellion to let people know that Black women are no longer dying for this.
This is something that pierced me in a way that changed me forever. And I just want to find out, who am I going to be on the other side of this?
We're holding on so tight that we forget who we are. We forget like the point of it all, which is to live. The best thing I could have ever done for myself was let go.